Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Conversations of Courage Surviving the COVID-19 Pandemic. I am your host, Art Chat Daddy Sims, the creator of the original Real Deal Relationship Chats and the Real Chat Daddy Show, which airs live nightly via 6 different social media platforms. But today I'm here to talk to yet another wonderful person about surviving the COVID-19 pandemic. We are well aware that many people have lost their lives, many people have battled with COVID, and many people are still battling COVID. What we're talking about today is how did people find their peace, gain or continue to have great health, and what happiness came out of the situation. My guest this afternoon is none other than information technology industry leader, former restaurateur, and newlywed, the one and only Miss Lora Powell-Parrott. How are you, Lora, and welcome to the show.
I am wonderful, and it looks like Zoe's going to talk a little bit too. She's in the background if you can't hear her, but thank you.
I hear her. Tell Zoe I said hello, and she's just as much of a superstar as her mom. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's so good to have you here today, Lora. Lora, I want to do the timeline of COVID if I could. And then once I do the timeline, we can start talking about what happened. So first of all, January 21st of 2020 was the first confirmed case in the United States. It was a gentleman in his 30s from Washington State. He had traveled to Wuhan, China. Within days, we heard of cases in Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and it went on and on and on. Fast forward to March 13th of 2020, COVID was declared a national emergency by then our current President Donald Trump. And March 15th, the CDC pretty much shut everything down, weddings, gatherings, events, and it went on and on and on. As we all know, the first case here in the state of Illinois was an African-American woman from the South Side who passed away from the first death in the state of Illinois. It was from an African-American woman on the South Side of the city. When I say COVID to you, when I say pandemic, keep in mind, we don't remember anything like this. The only other pandemic we heard of was 1918, 1919. What went through your mind when you heard COVID and pandemic?
I think initially when I first heard it, when it really started stirring up, actually, I was in California. And California was closing down. I was at a meeting in California. And while I was in California meeting with customers, they started saying, you can't come. We're going home. We're shutting down. So California was one of the first that really started shutting down. Consequently, the guy that I married, he was also meeting me there for a weekend after my meetings. And we didn't understand what shut down. How do you shut down a country? How do you shut down a state? What is it? We can't go anywhere. I mean, it was fearful. For me, it was a situation. I think anytime you step into anything that's unknown, there's a certain fear that comes about. And certainly, in all fairness, we had that fear. I had that fear. So that was the first thing that came to mind. Yeah,
absolutely. With that being said, and I think Zoe agrees with us 100% on that as well too. With that being said, Lora, not only here you are on the road as a businesswoman. You've been in the technology industry for a number of years. Your then fiance, now husband. So let's talk about the family dynamics. I know both of your wonderful parents. I know a lot of your relatives. There are elders. There are people who only want the best for them. How did you navigate through all of this with your family? Where did you find the peace in this, even though we were told don't touch, wear a mask, this is dangerous? Where did the peace come in all of this with your family?
Well, I would say, and even because the whole dating part, we started in the beginning of COVID. So, as you're trying to get to know somebody and someone's family, and everybody has elderly people in their family or someone that has all of the you know, with underlining tech, health issues. I mean, I'm sure many folks have people in their lives that fit that fit that, those check boxes, I'm going to call them. So I think finding the peace or how to come, we really watched the news. We really took the expert advice. We really looked at what are they saying, not from just social media and what you can, Google, but I mean, you're looking at everything. So I think knowing technology and knowing the proper way to look at it in those respected news and health places, such as Mayo Clinic and things of that nature, that's what we watched and really followed those guidelines. So certainly vaccination, when that came out, we were ready to go. Following, making sure my mother has everything under the sun that it says be careful of. So we were very, very careful of making sure that they were staying in the house, the elderly, and wearing the mask and really following the guidelines that was put out to everyone. You just have to make sure that where you're getting your information from, you're getting it from a credible source and one
Yes.
that's known. Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. That's what made me create my evening show, The Real Chat Daddy Show, because I know that I have a certain audience, a certain demographic, and that they would want to hear firsthand how this is working. They know I would never deliver erroneous information to them, information that is not, of urgency. And I try to book the best guests, doctors, therapists, all of that, because this has really been a trying time for us all. Now, what I most want to talk to you about, which I am so jealous, and I think a lot of other people would be so jealous about, is that you actually really did find love
Yes.
and you got married during the pandemic. Out of all the people I talked to, with all of these interviews I've done, nobody can really have the bragging rights of I got married during a pandemic. Let's talk about that.
Well, sure, sure. And actually, we dated and I mean, we did the whole thing within that time frame. And I think it starts with, are you ready? And are you with somebody that's also ready?
Mhm.
So that's the first thing.
Right.
And because everything was shut down, I mean, we're talking no restaurants, no bars, no parties, no house parties, no sporting events. I mean, if you can't get a man's attention and no sports are on, I mean, come on, that's the way to go. I mean, as soon as they said basketball was canceled, I was like, yeah, okay, we good now. So all you can do is look and talk, drink a little bit of wine and get to know each other. And that's what we did, and consequently fell in love and said, let's get married. And the good part about it, and even though I think if it wasn't, COVID wasn't happening, there wasn't a shutdown, even having a wedding and a big huge wedding and everything, I think a lot of women dream of that. But what made it so great was the intimacy of it, because those that were there were the ones that should have been there. We're both very fortunate to have both of our parents alive, so as a result, that was the most important thing. So literally there were 8 people at our wedding. Of course, I set it up to be like, 20 or so to make it look bigger for picture purposes. But there was only 8 people there, but it was the 8 people that counted, and that really meant the most to my husband and I. Yeah.
Very good. Well, you and your husband are both health fanatics. I know that. But how did you maintain your health? And, you even, had to bring your family to the wedding and things like that. So let's talk about the health aspect, the health regimen. Did you change anything? Did you do, what did you do, and what advice would you give to people on your secret to being more health conscious?
Yes, definitely. Again, making sure you're listening to the experts. That's the first thing, right? If they say wear a mask, you wear a mask. If they say, this is how you can, whatever it is. And so whether or not we're talking COVID or whatever, who are the expert and who's giving you the information, and follow those guidelines. So at this point, we kind of know what they are, right? You wear a mask. If you make sure, at that time, the vaccination was not out, but, have you been tested? We got tested prior to the wedding. But then, because of specifically my mom and my dad, they're both in their 80s. But I definitely did not want my mother to have to stop and go to any public places, bathrooms, or what have you, because from Chicago we were going to get married at my husband's family's house in Mississippi. So that's
Nice.
a long way. We were
Yes.
not going to get on the plane because at that time we didn't know what to expect. And for elderly people, I didn't want my mother on that. Didn't want
Yes.
my so we, this is where you got to put your creative hat on, right? There's a
Right.
lot of professional people that watch your show. I'm sure there's a lot of creative. You got to put the creative hat on, and
Yes.
that's what I did. And I just started Googling, started looking up, trying to figure it out. And I came across this luxury RV, and it was like, something, if anybody could, you could Google and look up Will Smith's RV is as big as a Greyhound bus, super nice. And that's what we did. We rented that out, and got a driver, of course, because I wouldn't dare try to drive something like that. But it had a bed, it had a bathroom, it was an apartment. It was like a New York apartment, okay,
Right.
big
Yes.
enough, right? We
Yes.
watched movies, we played cards, we listened to music, we talked, and it was just a great family. So those family members that attended from Chicago all rode on that RV or bus. It's like a tour bus. And we went down. So we went from my house to his parents' house. Nobody ever had to get off. And, except for the driver when he had to stop and take some breaks. Wonderful driver that they supplied for us. Did not know him. He had on a mask the whole time.
Very
So
good.
again, just following the guidelines. We didn't have to stop to eat because we brought food and we could cook because there was a full kitchen on the RV. But
Nice.
I have to say I have a whole new view and outlook. And this is one thing the pandemic, it brought new views about, because I
Yes.
end up spending my honeymoon, my wedding night in an RV park in Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi. Okay. But it was fabulous. We were across the street from the ocean. It was other RVs, people I probably would have never met, and I just saw a whole new life that people live that I didn't even know about. So it turned out to be a very safe place, but also new things and new learning, new people. And again, just as where just greatness came about, all under the rules and guidelines of handling COVID healthy
I
and
love it.
following
I
a
do.
healthy way to go about it.
I love it. I do. Well, as a technology leader, I do want to talk to you about technology. Who knew that this would be the way that we would be doing things? I'm a huge fan of the cartoon, The Jetsons. And when I was a little kid, I would always say, Lord, I can't wait till I live like the Jetsons. And really, we are living like the Jetsons now. With
More to
you
come.
being a technology leader, what's next for us when it comes to this pandemic, our new way of living? Do you think people will go back to office settings? Help us to understand the world of technology and this pandemic.
Wow. I will say the way that we work today, I've been talking to corporations, and that's what I do. I talk to major corporations in $1 billion and above. So very large corporations, just to put in perspective. So I've been talking about this is the way that we can communicate and save on traveling and real estate, really, and so many. So what we're doing now and what COVID did for technology, it really sped up technology and everything we've been talking at least 5 years ahead of time.
Mhm.
So it forced us to use the technology in the way that we're using it today. So what we're doing and the way that we're communicating, I've been doing this for about 20 years. This is the way IT organizations work. Typically you may see the big, huge signs on buildings in various cities and everything, but yet there's a lot of people working from home on the road. Every single thing that I can do on my PC, I can do on my phone. So I'm
Mhm.
not hindered by anything as far as work. So this is just the way that I've been working. So for me, it was commonplace. For companies that I call on, it was a wake up call. And it was, there's a lot that we have to change. And now seeing the light of just being prepared. So prepared for the future or prepared for any type of disaster. That's what happened to technology. I think as far as life changing and what's going to change in the years to come, I mean, no question. What's going to hit probably and most noticeably is the whole driverless cars, driverless, drones and deliveries that you're seeing a test of it now, but it will become much more commonplace. And I would say from day to day life, those are, I would say that's probably going to be the biggest thing of what's going to affect all of us that we will see in the very near future.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. We all need to know the outlook, but I do know you've been saying this for years that, I was like, oh my God, we've all got to talk to each other. And you were like, look, I told you a long time ago this was going to happen. So, yes.
Exactly.
Lora, let's talk about happiness. Congratulations on being the newlywed. Congratulations on your family being able to witness you being the newlywed. Let's talk about your message of happiness for people during this very, questionable time. It's still a very questionable time. We recently lost General Colin Powell. People are still perishing from COVID-19. So what words of encouragement and happiness do you want to leave on our audience?
Sure. I would say, and someone said this to me, and I would have to say, a person said to me, happiness is a choice, right? And that's because I think throughout our living and our lives, we're always going to have things to hit us and things that will hit us that's unknown or unforeseen or anything like that. And you have to be prepared for it. And I think as we get older and mature and now have experienced a few things, I think you just have to be open to it. So it's not the fact of, oh my God, I got hit with this rock or I got hit. But how do I handle it? And what do I do about whatever circumstances you have? I think it's okay to cry. If you're sad, cry about it. Be sad about it. It's okay. But then what's the rebound? I think you also have to have the right vices. What's the vice that you go to, and make sure you have the right parameters so you never go too far, right? So for me, definitely God is in my life. That's how I live. And that's what I lean on. But I think whatever your situation is, you have to find what your vice is, how to handle the challenges, and then move on and choose to be happy and keep moving forward. I think that's what's important for everybody to have to figure out and take that look in the mirror and think about self and figure it out for yourself. Nobody can figure it out for you.
Oh my God, how beautiful. That is really wonderful words to live by. Lora, thank you so very much for taking time out of your schedule to share your journey. Conversations of Courage, Surviving the COVID-19 Pandemic would not exist without people like yourself and all of my other guests that I've talked to during this time. If you guys want to reach Lora, you can reach her on LinkedIn at Lora Powell. That's where you can find her on LinkedIn as Lora. Lora Powell-Parrott. That's right. Hyphen, baby. You should have hyphened your name on here, but that's okay. That's all right. That's right. Mrs. Parrott. That's right. Thank you again, Lora. For those of you all that want to find out more about yours truly, please visit therealchatdaddy.com. Again, that's therealchatdaddy.com. More information can be found there. Make sure you check out The Real Chat Daddy Show. It airs Monday through Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. It's a wonderful entertainment news variety show. It airs on 6 different social media platforms. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for another episode of Conversation of Courage, Surviving the COVID-19 Pandemic. It's all about peace, health, and happiness. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who's lost a loved one and those who are still battling with COVID. But we do want to find peace, health, and happiness throughout this pandemic. Thank you again, Lora, and tell my girl Zoe that I love her. I see her saying goodbye to me. Yes. Here she tell I said goodbye. Thank you again, Lora, and have a beautiful day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. Bye.